So flashing ahead a little bit, you've gotten SNL and it's your first show. Do you remember that moment of going live for the first time to the world? Who was the host of that show? Because I should know that.
You really should, Jim. You should have my career memorized.
Exploring life's journey, one story at a time. This is Trailheads with Jim Barrett. Well, you know him as star of Saturday Night Live, 30 Rock, Archer, Rick and Morty, and so many other productions. I know him as my original Memphis homie and one of my very best friends. Today I'm talking with Chris Parnell.
Welcome to Trailheads. Thank you for joining me today, my friend.
Of course. Thanks for having me, man.
One of the themes of this podcast is about my passion for hiking, and even beyond just being out on the trails and going through the physical, climbing a mountain, going up to the top of the hill and all of that stuff. For me, it's been about mental health and almost like an antidepressant for me in terms of I've never done well with medications for that kind of thing, but hiking always has connected me to battle that anxiety and just sort of keep me in check. And some of the other people who I've hiked with over the years have said similar things. And I know you've been running for quite a while now. What is that like for you?
When I'm rested enough, when I've had a decent night's sleep, I'm able to enjoy it more. And it definitely helps as an antidepressant, even though I also take antidepressants. Um, and, it's, the one thing that I do to try to stay healthy. I mean, I do a little bit of dumbbells and some, planks and stuff like that after I run. I feel like I've got to do something, at 58. I want to keep trying to run for as long as possible and remain injury free, hopefully, and just as a way to stay healthy overall. Part of it is vanity, Jim, because at the end of a run, I don't look great, and I'll shoot a little running report sometimes on the iPhone, and then I look at it on my computer screen. It's like, oh, I got snot coming out my nose and spittle at the corner of my lips, and it's just like, man, I don't want to put that out into the world.
So let's go back to our beginning. You and I went to the same high school, Germantown, which is
Mhm.
a township just outside of Memphis, Tennessee, for those who don't know. And we both had the benefit of the same mentors, a former teacher of ours named Frank Bluestein. And when did you first get involved in that program?
When I started at Germantown halfway through my ninth grade year, then I auditioned for the first play. It was a little operetta called A Day in the Courtroom, A Night in the Lighthouse, I believe. It was a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. Um, and I mean, I think I'd heard the names Gilbert and Sullivan. I don't know, but I don't know that I was familiar with the concept even of an operetta. But that was a really cool and I think somewhat unusual introduction to my school, theater experience there. But I loved it and I was hooked and I auditioned for everything and did everything I could.
And we, of course, were in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat together. That was my senior year, your sophomore year, I believe. And
Yeah.
our claim to fame was being two of the brothers of Joseph himself. I
Yes.
was Reuben. Which one were you?
Judah.
Judah. That's right.
Yeah, Joseph was great. I mean, I'd done the operetta and then we did the Wiz. That was my first big Germantown High School musical. I played various characters in that, like an Emerald City citizen and a Munchkin and other things. But that was amazing. That was so cool. And then yeah, Joseph came along, auditioned for that, and got the part of Judah, and sort of discovered that I could kind of dance, move a little bit without, making. And I had some fluidity of movement. I'm not a great dancer, but um, and yeah, but that was fantastic. It was really fun to do. Um, and then very exciting that we got to perform
Memphis in May.
Tom Lee Park, I think, and yeah, for Memphis in May. That was like, with this very big crowd in front of us and just standing at the edge of this pretty tiny stage with a microphone, and it just felt like being a rock star for a minute. That was really cool. And then,
That
of course, getting to go to Muncie, Indiana was very special.
Yeah, it was the International Thespian Conference there, and I know that Ball State University, which I believe is David Letterman's alma mater, we
Yeah.
performed at this huge, beautiful stage. I mean, we had our stage at Germantown was pretty nice, and then it's funny when you're talking about Tom Lee Park and Memphis in May, the stage was about half the size of that, which we had to scale back and try not to fall off the edge of it. But then in Muncie at Ball State, it's this massive theater that I think serves the region. But I think that the theater is like a full size, like Broadway size theater, and we had to scale out our set to fill it out, and even
Yeah.
change our expert dancing to fill the space.
For some reason, I mostly have a memory of being in the audience when we were holding the ribbon, the colors, many colors ribbons, um, and singing and just feeling this enormous crowd. And yeah, it was pretty thrilling. And we were the opening night performance of the International Thespian Festival. uh an International Thespian, is that right? International
That's
Inter-
your conference, I think they call
conference,
it. Yeah, yeah.
that's the correct word. Thank you. um yeah, it was pretty exciting. We we were big shots.
We were. Frank Bluestein was our teacher, and he's done a lot of amazing things. He was beyond just a theater teacher. I mean, he started the cable TV studio. We had access to 4 different cameras. We could do live remotes. We had a weekly news show. One of the things that recurred to me, and I could be totally out of line, tell me this, but as after I graduated, you did a show called Greater Tuna with our friend Dan McCleary. And it's when I think about that, and tell me if I'm off base. It seemed to me, because that show, for those who aren't familiar, involves a lot of costume changes. It's basically 2 guys that play all these different parts. Can you
10
talk a little bit
characters
about
each, I
Great?
think.
What's that?
10 characters each, I think.
Did that, I'm not to talk for you, but did that play into SNL at all, or not?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a play for two high school guys to do, playing adults, kids, boys, girls, men, women, even some animal sound effects from backstage. Uh, it was a really great thing to do, and I just think it also made me feel like I could be legitimately funny on stage, with this piece that was really well written and funny. And getting to do it with Dan was pretty great. It definitely made me think, oh, okay, this, comedy on stage. I think there was something in there that clicked.
Jumping ahead, one of the, Chris and I have known each other since high school. We've known each other since high school. But we also, I've been more of a behind the scenes person, working in television, promoting network TV shows, working for the different networks, writing, producing, editing promos, some commercials, some reality shows I've edited. You've been obviously on camera, and some of that started at Germantown. Like I had teased before, we were there the first year of the TV station, GHS TV. Um, and did a few little bits. I think we did a news story. There was a big deal in Germantown that we were finally getting a McDonald's and a Wendy's, and all these fast Captain D's. And I want to say, I may embarrass you a little bit, and if I can find that clip, I'm sure I think I have a memory of transferring it from VHS to DVD, so I probably have it somewhere.
Okay.
And then there's a comedy break. I did this for some reason. Me of all people, because I am not a funny person at all. But I produced this thing called Comedy Break, and you were the kind of straight man in it as one of our friends who was kind of a wild guy, Kevin Holliday. We decided to do a piece about the space race going on in our area between Germantown, Fraser, and Bartlett, which are 3 townships in and around Memphis. And anyway, so I'll cut to that clip here if I'm able to. I'm almost sure I know where that one is. You and I'm going to get to this in a minute, but you and I actually from high school ended up being roommates in Los Angeles for a couple of years. And what was interesting for me is that I got a front row seat to your fast ascension into fame.
Well,
So I,
it didn't feel that fast, but
in that 2-year period between 94 and 96, a lot of things happened. You were in the Groundlings. Um, you started to get small parts on sitcoms. Seems like you did every sitcom at NBC where I was working at the time, which was fun. But scrolling all the way down to your IMDb, I saw your first IMDb credit was Hope and Gloria. I think, was that your first sitcom?
it was absolutely,
What
yeah.
do you remember about being on set for that, being in your first, and that predates SNL by a couple of years too, I believe.
Um, Well, I got the job because Tony Sepulveda, who's a very big casting director, I'm not sure. I think he's the head of Warner Brothers Casting now. I'm not sure, but and he was a important casting director even back then. And so he brought me in. I was in the Sunday show, and he had me come in to audition for this part on Hope and Gloria, and happily I got it. Um, and doing it, I just remember feeling like, okay, this is working. I felt like what I was doing was playing, and getting a good response. I remember this actor, Enrico Colantoni, who has been in a million things. He was one of the cast members. Was walking into the studio at the start of one of the days, and he was sitting out on one of the sets, just like cross-legged and just sort of meditating, just calmly. And he was so kind because I kind of asked him about her. I don't know. I started to engage with him, and he was just, could have been a dick about it. He's like, leave me alone. I'm doing this. But he was the opposite. He was just so generous and kind, and, sort of told me what he was doing. And I don't know. That just always stuck with me. And then I hadn't seen him in many, many years. And then I ran into him at Comic-Con a few years ago. And we brought up that moment, and he totally remembered it. And, it was very cool. He was there for the Veronica Mars reboot or movie or something, I think.
Okay.
Uh,
He, of course, bridging into another famous friend of ours, Missy Pyle, kind of got noticed
oh,
in Galaxy Quest, which he was one of the leads of one of the Thermians. I believe he was the lead Thermian. Is that the guy? Is that the actor
yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking
yeah. You're exactly right. You're absolutely
about? Who's
good
kind of
connection, man.
yeah. Thanks, brought to you in part by the Northridge earthquake on January 17th, 1994. I became homeless after that quake because my apartment uh, was yellow tagged, which meant that I was living on the kind of on the edge of Studio City and Sherman Oaks. So the building didn't fall down, but it twisted by about 1.5 feet on either side. So we got yellow tagged, which meant that we had 24 hours to get out. And the bonus of that was that you didn't really have to clean it up. You just grabbed your stuff and moved out and, left all the crap you're going to throw away on the next move anyway. But one of the fun little, name dropping moments was I knew that there was an actress who lived in my building who apparently had gone to high school with Valerie Bertinelli. And so Valerie showed up with her then husband, Eddie Van Halen, to help their friend move out. So I look up and I see as my couple of friends were helping me get out of there fast. And I look up and there's Valerie Bertinelli and there's Eddie Van Halen with a Van Halen t-shirt on carrying boxes. So
Just
that's
so we knew who he was.
just to make sure, right? But I remember calling you because I believe your lease was about to run out. And I said, hey, you want a room together? And you're like, yeah, okay. And so
Yeah.
we lived in Studio City
Yeah.
from 94 to 96. So it was fun for me as just the dude that lived down the hall to see you get into that world. And you had some pretty other famous folks around you. I know Jennifer Coolidge was there, and who were some of the other folks?
Yeah, well, the Mike McDonald was there. Anna Gasteyer was there with me, and then Will Ferrell, Sherry O'Terry, and Chris Kattan were just like in a class above me. Like they were in the main show before I got in, but I knew them from just being around. So it was very thrilling when the three of them got on SNL because they were the first ones to get in the cast since maybe Phil Hartman, and then Anna got on shortly thereafter. Um, but yeah, Maya Rudolph and Will Forte, I knew. We didn't perform at the same time, but they were with me. Cheryl Hines.
SNL, that was kind of the bar, I guess, for folks in the groundlings at that. Because I believe I heard that there's sort of a legend that most players who get on SNL, like the bar exam, oftentimes fail the first time. And am I wrong in that you were one of the few people who actually got it the first time you auditioned?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how frequent that is what you're describing. Honestly, you just don't know the answer to that. But yeah, it was great because I just did the one audition. It went well. They asked me to stay around an extra day, which I took as a good sign to meet, you know, the head writers and producers and people and other writers. And it was
Oh,
great because like not to put down Mad TV, but I auditioned like at least twice, if not three times for Mad. Never got it. Um, so it was great relief to just do the one audition for SNL and get the job.
And that's where your fellow alum Michael McDonald went. He was one of the main players on Mad, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, Mike was and I were in the groundlings together, and yeah, Mike. I remember seeing him in shows before I was in shows, like when I was taking classes, and that guy made me laugh so hard. So funny. He's more in the directing side of the world now and has done very well for himself there. But yeah, we auditioned for SNL the same day
Oh,
and
wow. Oh.
stayed in a hotel room next to each other,
Mhm.
and we do our pieces for each other over and over and deliberately not laugh at each other because we were told to not expect laughter. And it was incredibly helpful, because
Oh.
usually when you do comedy, you're expecting laughter or somewhere in there. And so to do it for each other and not laugh was fantastic. It was a great sort of strategy, I think.
So when you're in the studio, right? Aren't you in the actual
Uh,
studio where the show is done when you're
yeah.
auditioning?
You do it on home base there where the host does the monologue, and there's like one camera on you, and then there are people sort of sitting out in the dark, not a ton of people, but you can't really see them. You can't see who's out there. And then the feed from the camera is going to the offices, all the SNL offices and all that stuff. And yeah, it's just like a little one person show, and you hope you can get through it and not screw it up. And I
So flashing ahead a little bit, you've gotten SNL and it's your first show. Do you remember that moment of going live for the first time to the world? Who was the host of that show? Because I should know that.
You really should, Jim. You should have my career memorized. It was Cameron Diaz and
Okay.
Smashing Pumpkins were the musical guests. It was a pretty cool first show to have. Um, and yeah, I remember standing on the side, getting ready to go on to this sketch called Oprah 2000, which was the cold open. And it was an imagining this was in 98 and everything had just gone on with the Monica Lewinsky scandal. So it was an imagining of where everybody would be in 2 more years. And they were on Oprah together. And I think Molly was playing Monica Lewinsky. We had John Goodman playing Linda Tripp. Um, uh, it's like, gosh, who else was on it?
Was Daryl
Tim.
Hammond Clinton at that point?
Yeah, Daryl was Clinton. Um, was I'm trying to think, was Tim Meadows playing Oprah? Maybe. I'm not sure. Uh, I can't remember who played Oprah. I apologize. But yeah, it was this cool cast, and I remember having the feeling standing over there waiting to go on. I played Kenneth Starr, and thinking, yeah, I can do this, because I had this great combination of doing theater stuff, live theater, and then doing enough sitcoms and things. So it felt like a, sort of good uh, experience learning for that and preparing for that. And
Were you nervous? Were you terrified when you're about to
no,
go live, or how did you feel?
I wasn't terrified. I was certainly nervous, but the feeling I'm describing is me being like, yeah, I can do this. I can handle this. Because I don't like to work from nerves, it is not helpful to me. And so, but yeah, I was, I guess what I'm saying is I had done enough up to that point to feel prepared, to feel prepared for that moment, which was a great feeling, It wasn't
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to flash forward to, so that was in the fall of '98. Flash forward to May of '99, our friend John Kosky and I came to see you for what was our first SNL Live, and Cuba Gooding Jr. was the host.
Okay.
Ricky Martin was the musical guest, and
Okay.
Monica Lewinsky was the surprise guest on the
Oh,
show that
look at
night.
that.
And it was funny because we had made arrangements, and I worked at NBC at the time in the promotion department, and I had called my little, connections, and you firmed it up to make sure that we would get in there. And I remember before we left, you said, let me just give you the number of my dressing room in case there's a problem. It'll be fine. And so I was like, okay, great. So we're there, and there's this hallway that you wait. I don't know if it's still this way, but at the time you would wait in this long hallway, and they would let groups of people, first 20 people, next 20 people to load up the studio. And then Chevy Chase comes in, and Chevy Chase followed by literally about 25 people. I am not exaggerating. And we were all just standing there waiting to get into our seats, watching one and another person. And I could say this, Chevy was kind of a jackass. He was just going, he was sort of egging us like, come on, guys, oh, there's some more, come on in. He's let his friends, and we were like, oh shit, we're not going to get in. We're not going to get in. And sure enough, 5 people ahead of us, the NBC pages came in. Sorry, guys, we're all loaded up. Thanks for coming. And I remember I was like, I won't say what I said, but I was like BS. And so I pulled the page aside. I said, "Hey, I work at NBC also, and I'm here with my buddy John. We both went to high school with Chris Parnell, and they're like, yeah, 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 whatever. You can't go in." And I'm like, "Okay, well, here is Chris's dressing room. Please call this number." And he didn't want to do it. He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Please just call the number. Chris gave me this number. This is his dressing room. Please. And let's see if we can work something." I tried to be quiet about it before, so the other people, the other 50 people behind us are like, "Damn it."
Right. Yeah.
And sure enough, they called you, and the guy came back down with some urgency and says, "Okay, I'm so sorry, Jim. Yeah, we're gonna come on in, and we can get you in. You can be in the green room for the first part, which is kind of a cool holding area for guests sometimes and VIPs sometimes. But it's cool because it's windows that look down on the main studio, so you're still able to see the show from right, just above it. So Koski and I were there and hanging out with some of Ricky Martin's friends were in up there too. But right before that happened, Molly Shannon came out. Did she have a dressing room right next to you or something? Apparently she got the word that your friends were there, and she came out and she goes, "Jim and John, it's so nice to meet you guys. You come on in." And so she sort of took the baton from the page and brought us back. And was just so nice. "Oh, you went to high school together. That's so wonderful. I got friends too from way back then." She just could not have been sweeter,
She's
and
amazing. She's
made what
amazing.
was a potentially stressful situation into something just really nice and genuine and kind. It's like, um, so that was fun. And then we just had a great time because do you remember that? What do you remember about that show with Cuba and Monica and Ricky?
Nothing. Nothing. Was I even in the show? Did I even have any pieces in the show? Do you remember?
I hate to say, but we were trying to remember that, and I didn't
Yeah.
look that part. I'm a terrible friend that way.
No, you're not. I don't remember.
This is the scene where Jesus meets Paul the disciple. And action.
The stupidest thing I did, or the most embarrassing thing I did, was years later, being in the hallway there somewhere and introducing myself to Cuba like we'd never met. He's like, "Chris, I hosted the show." I was like, "Of course you did. I'm so sorry. I tend to assume that nobody remembers me, but I also just I think I'd forgotten in the moment that I had done a show with him. But I think that had to do with the fact that maybe I wasn't in the show that much.
But in the green room, it was the first chance to get to see that insane scene transition that you guys do. One set is here and the other one over here is the stagehands are prepping it or fastening walls together. Can you talk a little bit about that? But it was just fascinating to see how lickety split fast you guys would move from one setup to the next.
Well, we as the cast don't have too much to do other than just stand there and let our dresser or multiple dressers change us. Everybody else is really working their asses off. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible machine, really, because many of the people there have been there for so long, some since the beginning, and they just are really good at what they do. They know how to do the scene change fast. They obviously take it very seriously. They're just such pros, and yeah, I mean, it's a very impressive crew. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I think most people, when they see the show for the first time, are like, "Holy shit! Wow, this is amazing," and also because it's live, you can speak to this better than I can probably. It goes pretty fast. It's not like watching a sitcom taping, where you're there for 5-6 hours. This is like happening in an hour and a half. I mean, you have to get in there beforehand, so maybe it's 2 hours, but yeah, it's really something.
There's
So.
a real energy. That must have been pretty addicting to be there in that time. And how did that feel just week to week of that experience?
Well, it really depended on what kind of a show I had. So if I had a piece or two or three that I felt good about, then it was definitely much more exciting. If I didn't have much of a show, it was just like, oh well. But yeah, you're right about the energy. It's very exciting. One of the main memories I have of the excitement of being out there was when Val Kilmer hosted, the late, great, amazing Val Kilmer.
Hmm.
Um, and U2 was the musical guest. I think I'm getting this right. And Bono, during one of their performances, just walked off the stage and started walking around the studio. And I would always go out on the floor, if I could, if I had time, if I wasn't doing a big change, makeup, prosthetics, to watch the musical act. And so to be out there on the floor, seeing Bono go around the studio, and then the camera crew and the lighting folks, everybody scrambling to make the coverage happen to keep him lit and to keep him on camera in as smooth and seamless a way as possible, because it was totally unplanned. I mean, nobody knew that was coming.
That was
So
my next question. It sounded like, okay, it was in the moment, huh?
yeah, it was pretty cool rock and roll moment.
So I'm sure everybody asks you, what's your favorite sketch? And I think I know the answer, but I want to talk about more cowbell. What is the origin of that sketch? How did that one come to be?
It's the typical sketch beginning. Will Ferrell wrote it. It was called Recording Studio. Um, Obviously Christopher Walken was the host, and I wish I remembered more about it. I don't remember reading it at the table, but I think it went well, obviously. And then we did it at Dress, and I did get to see that because they did the whole documentary on the making of the Cowbell sketch recently, for the 50th.
Did he write it for Christopher Walken, or for knowing that he was coming on, or was it a sketch that predated that?
If Bruce Dickinson wants more cowbell, we should probably give him more cowbell. Sandberg.
I think he had written it maybe for Norm Macdonald. I think. Um, I think I'm remembering that correctly. I mean, I heard this all after the fact. I wasn't there when Norm was. But yeah, and so sometimes you'll do that. You'll bring a sketch at the table, and maybe it gets picked for Dress, maybe it doesn't. But if it doesn't make it on the air, and you feel like it was a solid sketch, and another host comes along and say, "Oh, who might be good for that part?" Christopher Walken, and obviously he was brilliant.
He brought so much to it. I mean, everybody was amazing in it, but he was just, I don't know how you guys kept it together without laughing well, some people didn't. Jimmy Fallon always laughed, but how you especially managed it. What was your nickname? Was it the Iceman for never breaking?
Yeah, that's what the Iceman, I think, came to stand for, because I didn't break. But the story that I remember is that Colin Quinn saw me standing over on the side getting ready to make my entrance during that Oprah 2000 cold open, um, and just saw that I wasn't nervous or any signs of anxiety, and he said to somebody like, "Oh, I guess like the Iceman," and that somebody
I
picked it up
I
and ran
recall
with it.
one sketch though that I think that Will Ferrell did break you a little bit,
Oh
where he
yeah.
played. It was the sketch was the idea that there was an actual mascot for TGI Fridays, and I'm TGI Friday.
World famous railroad tycoon and owner of this fine establishment.
and and I think that he got you in that one. But it's one of those rogue sketches that you can't find. I did a hunt for it yesterday on YouTube and other places that it should live. I
Yeah.
feel like he came as close to getting you to laugh. And do you remember that sketch?
Um, yeah, the reason you can't find it is because I threatened people to never air it because it should have gone with breaking. So I said, Lauren, if you show this, there's going to be a price to pay. No, I don't remember it, but I believe you.
Parallel to your rise to fame, I had my career was kind of at its apex. I was doing promos for ER, which was like that was the big deal and what I do for a living, doing promos
Oh yeah.
from the third season through when Kelly Martin's character got murdered. But so for like 4 solid years, I was almost nothing but ER, which was a pretty great show. So it was fun to be feeling like you and I were NBC buds on opposite coasts. And
Yeah.
back to when we were rooming in Studio City, from all the sitcom appearances, I remember what your day job was, and then you got this amazing first feature, I believe, right? Where your character was closely related to your day job.
Yeah. Yeah. I was working at FAO Schwartz Toy Store in the Beverly Center, um, which is a mall in Los Angeles for people who don't know. And somewhere in there was an audition for Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad, and I'm playing a toy store salesman. The thing I think that sold it for me, that got me the job, was just my laughing. because you had to laugh really hard at the audition and at Schwarzenegger and all that. Um, so yeah, it was interesting to get to do that, and then also be working at a toy store. But it was cool to get a role in a fairly big feature like that.
Well, I remember I was able to take advantage of that because that was 96, I believe, was Jingle All the Way before SNL. And this high school that we went to was famous for having an annual alumni banquet where each year they would honor somebody who had done some great things, or whether it was just through being a great leader or a great example or being a famous person. And this is right before all of those amazing things had happened. But I was working in the promo world, and one of the people I got to work with was the late great Don LaFontaine, who a lot of people associate with In a World Where blah blah blah, and he had this amazing voice. And so I got to work with Don every day. And so I said, "Hey, we're honoring my friend Chris Parnell at this banquet this year. Would you do a fake movie trailer?" Yeah, just write it down. He was he would, if he liked you, he would do that stuff.
Oh, excuse me. Yes?
He is the one who brings order to chaos.
Turbo Man's only the hottest selling Christmas toy ever.
From the director of Nerds, Greater Tuna, and the 50th annual Junior Miss Pageant,
Yes, you Christmas spirit.
Ephraim Frank Bluestein presents the superhero who does all his own stunts, Chris Parnell, as you've never seen him, with Bobby Watson, and introducing Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Toy Master, a PPP original coming soon to a theater near you.
The thing that sold it was that Don's voice was in it, but it was kind of fun because that was like a year before all the amazing stuff really did start to happen for you. Obviously, Jingle All the Way was a big one, but
Well,
I'll have to pull that one up.
Pre SNL,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. What do you remember about? Was that a day or two? Was that how much of a time commitment was that for you to shoot that movie?
I thought you were asking about shooting our thing. I remember like running around the apartment complex or so that you were in at the time. I don't guess we were roommates at that point. But
Right,
yeah,
that was after.
yeah. But I remember running around like in the parking garage and around there
Yeah.
shooting that in my toy store outfit. Shooting Jingle All the Way. You know what? It might have been a day. It might have just been a day. The thing that I didn't know was to save my best laughs for my close up. And, as they start wide and sort of tend to move into 2 shots and 3 shots and close ups and all that. So by the time we finally got to my close up of me laughing in Schwarzenegger's face, I was like, I had so little laughing energy left. It was so hard to get it out. And I just thought, thanks, director, for maybe telling me to save some for the close-up. I guess maybe he thought I knew what I was doing. I did not.
I believe also the late great Phil Hartman was a part of that movie, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. Sadly, I didn't get to work with him. I got to see him perform live at the Groundlings in an improv show once, and he was genius. I mean, it made me like appreciate him on a whole other level. It was amazing. It was amazing. So that was
I'll
that
tell
was
a
a
little
memory.
aside. I didn't officially meet him either, but I was at every year the networks and NBC specifically has a thing called the Mondo Shoot, where they have the talent, as many talent as they can get on a Saturday or a Saturday Sunday to come and be there. So on this stage you go and it's a green screen and they're going to put you in compositing over here. In this stage it's a white background, white cyc where they're going to shoot photos and the fans blowing and glam shots. And in this one, whatever. So each stage is for a different. Another one is there's all the news media are there, and you talk about and you do interviews about this new show you're developing. So I remember, and I'm not going to name names here, but there was a very famous sitcom that was on, and a lot of times the promo people will write the sketches, the promos, the concepts of what is shot that weekend. And a number of the talent are not big fans of it, but they do it because that's in their contract and they're doing it. So there was a famous couple who was there, and the woman was like not in the mood for it at all. I was like looking through the scripts. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And then the guy said, "Wait a minute, hang on. I mean, look, there's a couple here. Look at this one. This is pretty good. This is pretty good." And she's okay, all right. And so they begrudgingly she went and did it. In the meantime, 15 feet away, you had John Lithgow and Phil Hartman were over there, who were on 30 Rock and News Radio at the time.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we could do this. And look, there's was the red ball. We can do this. And they're coming over to the directors. Can we try this? I know you wrote it this way, but can we try that? And the director's like, yeah, sure. So it was such a pleasant surprise that players were not annoyed by the process and wanted to make it better. And just to see that happening with the energy that both of those guys had then and continue to have, that always just stuck with me,
Oh, sure, of course, yeah. I mean, and that makes sense for the kind of people they are and were. But I did get to work with John Lithgow on a drunk history,
Oh,
which was pretty cool. Even though we were just mouthing other people's dialogue, but he's a pretty obviously legendary, amazing actor and continues to do incredible work. So that was a highlight.
who does that for you? Who over the years has done that for you? Brings you to your A game with that level of energy that you play off of.
Um, I mean, the whole SNL gang, for sure. Will Ferrell in particular. Um, getting to do Walk Hard with Tim Meadows, that was pretty great because that's when we kind of got to be more buds. Was doing Walk Hard because he was. I think we only overlapped by one season, maybe two at SNL. He'd been there so long already. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess Will would have to be one of the main ones. But I love working with Tim too. I mean, I love working with all of them.
So I want to ask you something. And you can tell me to go to hell if you don't want to talk about this.
Go
But
to hell.
as in advance, we're covered. In your early days, we would have our lunches, our friends, and you've always been great about, as you got famous, our friendship was unaffected. It was always, you never like got a big head, and we were always remained great friends, and thank you for that. And I'm just, you're truly one of my best friends.
Like,
But I just remember that through that process in the beginning, there was a transition for you where when people would come and but like we would be having lunch and somebody, oh, I love you, Chris, you're so amazing. And your initial reaction, it was understandably annoyed and trying to do your best to bite your tongue and not tell them to go away. But over time, it seemed like you really learned to deal with that. Can you talk about some of that process for you?
I'm disappointed to hear that I started out as a bit of an asshole about it. That's unfortunate. I have blocked that out, I guess. But
I wouldn't say a-hole, but I would, understandably annoyed when you're trying to hang with your friend and somebody is coming up and being um, annoying that way. But you
well,
really, today most recently it still happens, of course, and people would walk up. I mean, some of them are famous. Like we were having lunch in Toluca Lake one time, and Conan O'Brien walks up, hey, I know you, and you're like, hey, I know you, and so there's that, and he's like, hi, I'm Conan. I'm like, I know, I'm Jim.
yeah.
And but another time it was you had taken me to Craft, a swanky restaurant in Century City, and we're sitting there, and each booth has these kind of veneers around it where you can kind of see who's sitting over there, but not quite. And we were sitting there, and I'm like, "Hey, Adam Sandler is in the next booth over there." You're like, "Oh, okay, wow." And I don't think you even bothered to tell me, but you had just recorded your first voiceover for Hotel Transylvania
Oh, okay.
because when he and his wife got up and walked right past us, he's like, "Hey," he said, "Hey, that you sound really great in the movie. Thanks for it." And you guys shook hands. And again, he was like, "Hi, I'm Adam. Hey, I'm Jim." So that was always fun. Tell me about that. How was it working with Sandler? And or did you actually work with him with the voice over on that?
I didn't work with him on Hotel Transylvania. No, the only time I got to work with Adam Sandler is on The Ridiculous Six, this Netflix movie that he made, and he didn't direct it, but he, was the main character and had a big hand in the direction of it too. So yeah, I got a part in that, and I remember him like really trying to help me get the best performance out that I could in one scene where I was supposed to be more of a heavy. I mean, my character was not a good guy. Um, and I remember that, and I really appreciated it. I was like, oh, yeah, he's really trying to help get the best out of me for this moment. I don't know that he did, but he was trying to help me. But yeah, he's such a lovely guy, and I got to see him most recently at the SNL 50th concert and all of that, and he and his wife are just such sweet people, and just again, it was a case of like me walking by, and he's like, hey, and I think in the beginning, when I was, more annoyed by people coming up, I think it probably had something to do with me not accepting my own bit of celebrity. It was just like, "Yeah, I'm not a big deal." Just like I hadn't accepted what was happening, and I didn't feel like I was deserving of that kind of notice.
I
But as
see.
I went along, I think, you just get used to it, and you're like, yeah, I mean, people are being nice. You just, have to appreciate that and feel like, yeah, okay, if this is how they feel, then I am worthy of getting that. Little bit of adulation. And then the way that manifests itself now in the biggest way is going to these Comic-Con conventions, these not just the big San Diego and New York Comic-Cons, but all the cons that are constantly happening all over the country and the world. Um, and just the way people come up to you at those, and they're paying to get your signature and a photo with you maybe, but there's most of them are just so effusive and kind, and just it's like they're telling you how much they love your work, and it's different stuff, and it's just like it's very gratifying. It's very, makes you feel good, you know.
Yeah, I over the years, in my side of television, I've done some, produced some features on different things. And one time I got to do one on a Star Trek convention when I was in Pennsylvania working for KDKA in Pittsburgh. But at two of the guests at that convention I went to were Catherine Hicks, who played the whale scientist in Star Trek 4.
Yeah.
This is before her big stardom came. And also Colomini, who played Chief O'Brien on Next Generation. And I talked to both of them about what it's like, and about that sort of moment where people excite, and especially in the Trekkie world of, it's kind of like Galaxy Quest, the excitement of the Trekkies have that the warp drive is real, how do the transporters work, and all that kind of thing. And it was fun to talk to those two about that. And especially Colomini, because he's like, well, these are excited people, and we actually have a thing called Star Trek School where we go and they sort of brief us on how to interact with fans in a kind way, but to set proper boundaries too.
Oh, well,
But Catherine Hicks, um, what a ridiculous time that I'm getting emotional about this. But Catherine Hicks had this beautiful, she said, I'm new to this Star Trek world. And I remember when I was a kid growing up, it seemed like all of the smart kids were watching Star Trek, and I didn't really understand it or pay that much attention to it. But when I did, and I was in this film, and since then, when she was going to conventions at that time too, and signing autographs and taking pictures, she says, I felt like, wow, I've been invited into this whole world. And these people are so interested in my career and excited about my career in a way. So it does, she says, I was a little taken aback by it because, but at the same time, I just appreciate what you were just saying in a lot of ways too, that there's, appreciating that they are appreciating you.
yeah. Well, and also, there's nothing wrong with getting emotional about it. I started to get emotional when you were telling me about Molly coming and being so kind to you and John. I was just like, oh, that woman is just. Oh, she's a very special lady, and obviously brilliant and hilarious, but just such a kind, good human being, it is moving to hear, somebody like Catherine Hicks who appreciates the moment. I ran into, to name drop a little, Dermot Mulroney, who I knew, who I know, and I saw him at the first con that I did, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. It's great." It was like, "Oh yeah, Dermot was right. This is fantastic."
Voiceover animation is something that's been a huge part of your career between Archer and American Dad and Rick and Morty, of course. And whenever I am meeting somebody new and I mention that you and I are friends, that's always oh Rick and Morty, SNL too. But Rick and Morty is the universal icebreaker in talking about Chris Parnell. People are so excited about that one. But what was that like for you? I don't know exactly when you did your first voice animation show, but how was that translating your comedy into a show where you're sitting oftentimes, I guess, in a little recording booth without, I mean, you're on the phone, right? Well, tell me about that. What is it like translating comedy into that environment?
It kind of has to be in the script. It has to be on the page, to begin with. Um, it's freeing, very freeing in the sense that it doesn't matter what you're doing physically with your face or your body or your arms, and you can just pour all of your concentration and your energy into your voice. And, it's, I guess I've spoken about this before. The biggest challenge is, and I think I'm pretty good about it now, is to not phone it in. It's like you can listen to yourself and you can do one line, so many different ways in quick succession, depending on how long the line is. But it's about acting it well, and trying to be in the moment with it, and being present in your mind in this animated scene, and not that I'm necessarily picturing the animation, but yeah, it's just trying to be present and act it well and do justice to the writing. And then the comedy part of it is hard sometimes, because it's like I can do my best to act it well, but also, like, is there a way to make it funnier? And and again, it's generally on the page there, especially with Rick and Morty and Archer and well, American Dad, all of them. But yeah, it's having this other eye to maybe there's a funnier way to do this. And sometimes it's just about finding um, a more honest way of doing it. And sometimes that will bring the comedy in and of itself, because it just rings truer. I just got to see 2 episodes of season 8, but that was really cool to get to see it on a big screen with an audience, because I never get to watch it like that.
Well, I just watched one of your latest animation with Love, Death, and Robots, which is called The Other Large Thing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I finally just not that long ago got to see the promo trailer for it, and I was just so blown away by the animation. I mean, all of it is so amazing, but for my segment and my character, and it's my voice, or at least at the top of this particular trailer, playing the voice of this cat. And I'm excited to see it. I haven't seen it. I'm a little nervous, because I just hope, like, God, I hope I did it justice. I mean, it's like when you see how much work and brilliance has gone into animating something. I mean, it was, obviously well written to begin with, but then you do your part. And I think I've done Love, Death, and Robots. I don't know if that was the second or third time I've done it, but it's like you get this thing, and you're kind of not thinking of it in the context of how good it's going to be, and you do the best you can, and then to see the animation, I was like, oh wow, this is some high level stuff, and I just hope I did it justice.
Well, then it's an for people who haven't seen it. It's an anthology series with it's almost all sci-fi, Ben. In fact, I would say it's kind of a combination of Twilight Zone meets Black Mirror, but they're very dark. But the animation styles are very unique to each episode. They just have a different look. And what was the other part of the fun was, you probably know this, is that John Oliver plays the character that your character is playing off of. And so
Yeah.
I watched it the first time. I'm like, man, that voice sounds familiar. And then I IMDb'd it. It's like, oh yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a really fun episode. How has being a parent played into your career? Do you think about the work that you're doing based on your boys? How is being a parent? Because that's obviously a huge game changer for us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess it mainly comes into play when I'm playing a dad like Jerry. Um, and I had to do a speech recently. I think it's going to be in season 9, which we just finished recording. Um, Even though season 8's what's about to start airing. That was emotional, and it involved sort of an alternate Jerry in an alternate situation. But one of my first memories of being a dad kind of was this awareness that, you love this person so much, and then you also, was accompanied by this fear that, like, oh God, what if something happens to them?
Mm.
It's just this, like, this beauty, and then this terror, and trying to just hold on to the goodness of it, and not letting the fear of something horrible that will hopefully never happen come in. And but I was able to pull on some of that. I'm able to pull on some of that
Mhm.
sometimes, particularly if it's an emotional scene.
What shows have your kids? What performances have your kids? Because obviously there's some that they probably aren't allowed to watch yet. But what are some of them that you've gotten to share with them?
Um, Nature Cat. They've seen a fair bit of Nature Cat. Damien's too old for it now. Harry will still watch it occasionally. I think Damien watched a few Peabody and Shermans back when he was younger. I think Damien's probably in a couple of years anyway, will probably be ready to watch Rick and Morty if he wants to. I know he's got his buddies who do, and one of his friends from school came up to me at one of their baseball games and said, "Hey, I just started watching Rick and Morty. You know, you're awesome, man," and gave me a fist bump. That was cool.
Your dad was also in broadcasting, and from his own corner, we both lost our dads in the last 2 years. What was it like having him? Uh, did he? I mean, do you feel like he played a role in ushering you into broadcasting and what you turned out to do?
He did, yeah. I mean, just by his presence and by what he did for a living, and growing up listening to his voice, I think that affected me certainly. I am adopted, but somehow I ended up, thankfully, with a pretty good voice, and his was even more sonorous and beautiful than mine. He was a disc jockey, I think, when I was very little, and then he moved into being a program director, and then he started his own recording studio with a partner of his. And so when he needed the voice of a kid for a commercial and a spot that they were producing, he would often use me or my sister. So that was kind of my introduction to performing. And I don't know that when I did it, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I don't think that's what happened, but I remember when I got very serious in high school, about wanting to be an actor. It had to do with Mr. Bluestein a lot, because he said, you know what, you can really do this, if you want to, man. You can do this. You could be like Al Pacino. I think he might have been overstating things. I don't think I'll ever be at Mr. Pacino's level, but it was very encouraging, and he encouraged me to audition for North Carolina School of the Arts, which I did. So when I made it clear to my parents that this is what I really wanted to do, they felt an obligation to sort of like try to present me with the reality of the business in as much as they knew it, which mainly came from my dad knowing some Memphis actors who'd come out to LA and, done a fair bit of work, and their experience. So, they felt the need to like say, it's really hard, are you sure this is what you want to do? And when they saw that I was serious and really cared about it, and I think that, they saw the plays, so I think they realized that I wasn't just a pie in the sky guy. It's like, oh, the kid's got some talent, and then they were very supportive. They were always supportive of it. So yeah, but yeah, definitely an influence, and also just, I mean, the biggest influence was just the person that he was. Just his kindness and calmness, and his just loveliness. He was just a sweet man. Everybody liked my dad, and
He was always wonderful to me. I did not know your dad that well, but every time I saw him, he was always so kind. He's one of those people who finds you and makes you feel like you're the most special person in the room, and your dad had that quality.
yeah, he was a pretty special guy, and such an amazing role model. You know, I I think I don't have all of his best qualities for sure, but I have some of them, and I've learned a lot of them from him.
I have a lightning round for you.
Okay,
Are you ready for this?
sure.
Burger or pizza?
Pizza.
One of my favorite memories with you is watching The Fifth Element together, which I think just celebrated its 28th anniversary. We were at the Cinerama Dome together. What's your favorite sci-fi show, and ideally one that maybe you want to be in or be a part of?
Well, favorite sci-fi movie would probably have to be the David Lynch Dune. Um, I mean, it definitely would. I love that movie so much. No, I quite enjoyed the Denis Villeneuve Dunes as well, and I just got to meet Jason Momoa at one of the
Oh,
SNL 50th things, which was
okay.
pretty cool. Yeah,
He
uh,
was terrific in Dune, yeah.
yeah, he was. Yes, he was. So yeah, I would say Dune, and then TV show wise, I mean, I got to be on a very cool one, Fallout. Playing Overseer Ben. That was
You had an eye in the middle of your forehead.
Yeah, it was a Cyclops. The Last of Us is amazing, which I am
Mm,
completely behind on season two. I have not
mm,
started season two.
okay.
Um, but yeah, I love sci-fi, as you know.
What is the top artist on your playlist?
Well, I mean, the one I go back to a lot is Lana Del Rey. I listen to Lana Del Rey when I'm driving, especially at night, which
Mm.
I'm not driving at night too often, but I really like to listen to her. Her music is kind of like an LA soundtrack for me. It just feels so LA, and it's just gorgeous, and I really love that. But I also listen to, I mean, so much. Bat for Lashes, I really love. I really love her. Um, yeah, I guess those the
Okay.
Sufjan Stevens. Yeah.
What is your hidden talent?
My hidden talent. I can move better than I look like I could, though I'm not a great dancer, but I do have some sense of that. My hidden talent, gosh, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't, I think I'm pretty talentless beyond what you can see right on the surface.
Which celebrity were you surprised to learn is a fan of yours?
It was very cool. I got to do a couple of segments for John Oliver for Last Week Tonight. Um, and well, I don't think I've ever even spoken to John, but I took his feedback from what I did. I heard, through a note he wrote and stuff. That was very flattering because he's fantastic. I think so much of him. You run into people, especially these Comic Cons, and they'll be like, "Hey, man, you're so great," and you'll get that back, which is sweet.
Mm.
Usually, if they know who you are.
Slight shift here. So one of my little moments in flying back and forth to Memphis back in the days when you could bump up to first class for $100, I sat next to Holly Hunter on the plane when she was flying there to go to Mississippi to shoot "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And we had we didn't talk a lot. She was mostly reading the script on the flight out there.
Yeah.
But we had a lovely little conversation. And I've got, like we do, we've been fortunate, whether we're in front of the camera or behind it, got to meet a lot of interesting people over the years. Who were you sort of starstruck by, whether you work with them or not?
Um, I mean, I got to meet Rachel McAdams once at a restaurant here. I was there actually with Natasha, my now wife, when we were dating, and she was sitting at this restaurant with her sister, small restaurant in Silver Lake, and she said, "You should go say something to her." So I went up and introduced myself and told her about, I was one of the guys in Lazy Sunday, and we mentioned you and Ryan Gosling and all this, and she was very sweet. So that was very cool. But here's one. Brooke Shields. Brooke Shields. Even though I had met her on Suddenly Susan, it was so long ago, and I had such a small part. I didn't even know that I was in a scene with her on that. But she came around to SNL when Ben Stiller was hosting, and she had been working on this movie with him in New York there. And she came in to say hi to him and just see the scene. And she had been working that day, and I think she wanted to have something to drink. So she's like, is there any wine or alcohol or anything around here? It's like, well, I've got some scotch in my office. Would you like to come over there? So I got to walk the lovely and amazing Brooke Shields over to my office that I shared with Will Ferrell and a writer, Jerry Collins. And yeah, and so that was cool. Then we walked back. It was just like, wow,
Right.
yeah, that was exciting.
Who would you love to work with who you haven't yet?
I love to work with so many great actors. Um, Pedro Pascal is pretty great.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, um, I mean, I've gotten to work sort of with Martin Short on SNL, but doing something with him and again, Steve Martin hosted. They're fantastic. Obviously, needless to say, Meryl Streep would be great.
Although you technically were in a movie with her, but you weren't in the same scene.
Which movie was it?
The Laundromat?
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've certainly been in movies with people that I haven't ever gotten to meet, so it doesn't really count.
What's something that you'd love for people to know about your Memphis hometown that they may not know?
It was a great place to grow up. And I'm going back a week from today and see a few friends, including my sister and her family, and Mr. B. And, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that very much. And Dan, um, and Jennifer Smith. It was a good place to grow up, for sure.
Yeah.
And I like going back.
Well, man, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. This was fun, and it was fun to hear some stories, even as close as we've been that I had not heard before. So thank you for taking the time out, and would love to do this again and can't wait to see you again. And please tell everybody in Memphis who you're going to see next week that I said hi.
I will. It was really fun. Thanks for having me on your podcast, man.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
All right, Jimmy boy.